Hey, what's going on? Charles Austin here, and let's be fit forever. Um, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about uh, living with chronic disease, right? And I kind of got this inspiration because yesterday it was after dinner, and uh, me and my son we were just like play boxing, right? And we're play boxing and we're running around. Well, he's running around more than me because I'm outsmarting him, right? He's only 4 and a half, right? But anyway, we're playing around, we're running around. And I started thinking, I was like, man, you know what? For like so many millions of Americans, and not just Americans, folks, across the globe, like doing simple tasks like these can be difficult because of the fact that they're suffering from, one or many different types of chronic disease. So again, kind of just wanted to go over a couple of things associated with living with chronic disease today. But hey, before we do, like always, make sure you like this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to this video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn those notifications on so that you're always up to date with the latest content here on the channel. All right, so as always, I like to dive right in. Let's do this, right? So I kind of wanted to start here, right? And for those of you who may not be clear about what chronic disease actually is, as it says here, chronic disease is defined as any disease lasting 3 months or longer. And unfortunately, it's a way of life for a lot of people. And as it says here, incurable, this is where I call BS on, you know, if you, I posted a link to the video I made on actually defining what chronic disease is and actually the ways that you can prevent it and cure it, right? I provided a link in the description to this video, so make sure you check that out if you want to learn a little bit more about what chronic disease actually is, right? But anywho, so just to understand, and some common types of chronic disease include things like uh, diabetes, obesity, cancer, uh, heart disease, stroke, Alzheimer's. These are all examples of chronic disease, all examples of things that are preventable and curable, right? So, anywho, um, so I kind of started. I found this article here, and it was interesting just because of some of the things that they mentioned about the things that you have to deal with on a regular basis if you're somebody who suffers from chronic disease. And again, that's something that I talk about a lot here on this channel, just because chronic disease is one of those things that we can prevent and we can cure simply with diet, right? So one of the things that's super difficult that you have to deal with daily if you're somebody who suffers from some of those things I mentioned would be cost, right? Um, as you see here, more than 2/3, right here, more than 2/3 of all healthcare costs are spent on treating chronic disease, right? And I actually read another article earlier today in my research, and I found that, obviously on a 100% scale, 90% of the healthcare budget is spent on chronic disease. Okay, so that other 10% is actually spent on other things, broken bones, surgery, whatever, right? But 90% is spent on chronic disease. All right, and then something else that was kind of interesting is the fact that if you look here, 68% of Medicare beneficiaries, right, they have two or more chronic diseases. Two or more, right? So that's a lot, right? And again, other data that that is important is to understand that most people who have one chronic disease, they probably don't know that they probably have two other ones as well, right? So if you know that you're diabetic, Well, you probably have some form of heart disease. If you're obese, you probably have high blood pressure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So, anywho, other things, physical limitations, right? There's lots of side effects associated with these different types of chronic disease, right? So you're gonna experience major and minor physical symptoms associated with the condition, and you have to manage those, all right, while trying to do regular everyday tasks, right? Not to mention emotional challenges that are associated with the fact that when you're told over and over and over and over again that diabetes and heart disease, obesity, all these different things are death sentences when they're actually not necessarily a death sentence. There's going to be emotional challenges with dealing with the fact that you have to wake up every day, taking all those pills, all your medical visits and medical bills, all those different things can cause emotional challenges as well, right? So moving on, right? So there's just some other things to consider, right? That we're dealing with each and every day when we're focusing or when we're living with chronic disease. Again, for those who may have just joined on or not sure what we're talking about the struggles of dealing with chronic disease, struggles of living with diabetes, the struggles with dealing with heart disease and high blood pressure and high cholesterol and obesity, all these different things, all right? So you got to understand a lot of folks are out of work just because of their chronic disease, right? So many a times they're homebound because they're too sick to leave their homes, except to go get their medication or to go see the doctor, right? This is another big thing. Reading another article recently where the study found that we're actually heading into a point to where now more and more people are actually staying at home from work, missing work, and our workforce is being harmed by it, which is threatening the economy in the future, right? All of this because of chronic disease, because we're not putting the right stuff in our bodies, right? We talked about emotions already, all right? But here's another big one, right? A big, huge one, which is fatigue, right? And you might look at that and say, well, fatigue, that just means I'm tired. Not necessarily, right? Fatigue, it takes it a little bit deeper, right? And we're talking about something that's chronic, so that means you're dealing with this all the time, right? So if we look here, no, I do not want to subscribe. So if you look here, fatigue, as it found here on the National Institute of Health, right? Fatigue is extremely common. It's an extremely common complaint among patients with chronic disease. However, because of the subjective nature of fatigue and the lack of effective therapeutics which is with which to treat fatigue, the symptom is often ignored by clinicians who instead focus on hard objective disease endpoints. Now, why did I read all of that, right? Why did I read all of that? Well, the point was, folks who are diabetic or have heart disease, all these different things, right? They're going to regularly, I'm talking about waking up throughout each and every day, they're going to regularly have fatigue symptoms, right? And obviously some of those things are like lethargy, right? Being lethargic, having brain fog is one of those things, having inability to concentrate. All of these different things are associated with fatigue. So instead of the doctor actually saying, let's see if we can do some things or give you some help with actually those fatigue symptoms so that maybe you can get through the day a little bit easier, they just kind of ignore it, right? They don't even focus on the fact that fatigue is a big deal. They just say, well, let's just focus on trying to treat this problem that you have with the chronic disease, right? As it goes on to say here, it's getting a little bit more attention, but it's still not enough, right? So fatigue is a big deal, right? So as it goes on here, like we talked about, brain fog, right? Associated with fatigue as well, right? As it says here, cognitive dysfunction common in chronic illness, which can include issues with word finding, like literally just trying to read and find words, concentration, and just kind of memory and recall, right? All things associated with chronic disease. So let's pause for a second and let's explain, well, like, why the heck would somebody with high blood pressure or why the heck would somebody with heart disease have issues with fatigue and brain fog and all of this stuff? Well, if you think about it, all of this stuff is associated with blood flow, okay? So consider somebody who has blood flow restriction in their arteries due to high cholesterol. Well, now we're not getting the nutrients, we're not getting the oxygen we need to go to our brain and to our muscles. And guess what? That leads to lack of concentration, lack of ability to focus. And now our muscles can't do what they need to do because they're not getting the nutrients. Okay. All right. So again, most of these issues end up coming down to blood flow. There's so much in your blood that tells your body what to do, and it gives you the ability to do certain things, right? Think, move, chemical signals, neurotransmitters, hormones, all of these things have to travel through blood. Fighting infection, all of these things have to travel through our blood, our white blood cells. So if you have restricted blood flow because of high cholesterol, if you have restricted blood flow because your heart can't function as well because you have heart disease, right? All of these things are associated with restriction of blood flow, right? Greater risk of dangerous infections, right? We're going to talk about the immune system when I wrap up here in just a second. But yes, if you're dealing with chronic disease, you're going to be dealing with a weakened immune system, okay? So I'm going to make a little COVID connection here at the very end when I wrap this up here, okay? Sensitivity to foods, all right? We go on and on. So again, these are just some of the things, right? But let's focus on a couple of specific types of chronic disease real quick. So here we're talking about obesity, and you know, if you want to define obesity, it's basically talking about when you have a BMI of 30 or higher, body mass index, all right? Just a way to tell how heavy somebody is or isn't, right? So, and I think we all know the causes. We understand how obesity happens. I haven't made a video on obesity yet, but it'll be coming. All right, but let's just scroll down to the bottom, okay? And of course, we know about the complications, heart disease. Generally, if you're somebody who suffers from obesity or you're severely overweight, you probably have one of these or many of these. You probably have trouble sleeping. You probably have some type of osteoarthritis, et cetera, et cetera. But I just wanted to go down to this simple little description, right? So as it says here, obesity can diminish the quality of life, and you may not be able to do physical activities that you used to enjoy. So remember, I started this video out with talking about the inspiration for wanting to make this video. And it was because after dinner, my son and I were just play boxing. You know, we're just running around the living room, just play boxing, right? And I'm not tired. I'm not out of breath. He's the one who's getting tired. I'm wearing him out, right? So it got me thinking, like, wow, how many people around the world are having issues with doing these simple everyday tasks because of their diabetes or their obesity or their high blood pressure, etc., right? So again, you're not going to be able to do the physical activities you enjoy, and that's a big deal. I'm not really getting into the other stuff with discrimination and all that. That's a whole nother video. But the main thing is just talking about quality of life. So not specifically just to obesity, right? Let's look at all the complications associated with diabetes, right? And again, we're talking about chronic disease, things that are curable and preventable with nutrition, okay? 9 times out of 10. For all the folks that want to comment and say, oh, well, what about this person who has all of these different things? We're talking about on average, okay? So, diabetes. Let's look at the complications. So if you know for a fact that you have been diagnosed diabetic, okay? Well, you're increasing your risk for heart disease. Well, what does that do, right? Well, we know if you have heart disease issues, you're going to shorten your life. Regular everyday tasks are going to be more difficult because your heart is inefficient. And what does your heart do? It pumps blood throughout the body. We've already covered the fact that blood carries oxygen, nutrition, hormones, white blood cells, etc., 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 right? So what about nerve damage? Okay. Well, what do nerves do? Well, nerves are part of our nervous system, obviously, and they're literally sending signals and communicating with all parts throughout our body. So if we have damage to our nerves, well, now we may have musculoskeletal issues. We may have issues with signal sending, our brain sending signals to digestive organs, hormone secreting organs, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we're creating other issues with everyday life, right? What about eye damage? Now we're having problems with seeing and vision. All right. Digestion problems. Okay. So again, the reason why we consume and eat food is to make sure that we can properly absorb the nutrition and the energy that our body needs to function. If that process is inhibited, well, now we're affecting our everyday life. Okay. So we got to connect these dots on the issue with chronic disease and why it's so debilitating. What we do is we hear it all the time is that, oh, it's debilitating, it's bad. Well, why is it bad? These are the reasons, all right? For any of the gentlemen who may be watching, erectile dysfunction. If you find me a man on planet Earth that's like, yes, sign me up for erectile dysfunction, I'll call you a liar because none of us are signing up for that, right? But as you can see, that's going to affect your nighttime activity, right? So whenever you get ready or you're in the mood, well, my diabetes has caused me to not be able to do some of the things I would like to do, okay? So we could go on and on. So it's not just about talking about being obese, right? Because sometimes I actually get attacked by people who saying, well, why are you calling out people who are obese or overweight? It's not about calling out. It's about saying that this is slowly killing you, okay? But it's not just about obesity. We just talked about diabetes. I didn't bring up weight at all, all right? What about heart disease? Let's talk about that real quick before we wrap up, all right? Complications of heart disease, all of the things that, again, chronic disease makes worse, okay? So, where was it? Oh, I lost my place here. Here we go. This is where I was. All right. So if we're just talking about men and women, gender-specific issues, right? Women and men do have different symptoms associated with heart disease. But again, when we scroll down here, where is it? We're talking about chest pain, tightness or pressure in the chest, particularly when you're associating this with physical activity. Again, where did I start this video? I started off by talking about the fact that after dinner, my son and I were doing our play boxing, and I was thinking, how many people can't do this? Okay? So you got to start thinking about the fact that, hey, do I want to be able to play with my kids until they're out of the house? Do I want to be able to play with my grandkids once my kids give me some? Right? If you are constantly suffering from diabetes and heart disease and obesity and Alzheimer's, all these different chronic diseases that, again, are curable and preventable with diet, then you're not going to be able to experience these things. They just won't happen, okay? We've already covered ad nauseum that the number one killer on planet Earth of all humans is this thing right here. Heart disease kills more people than anything else on planet Earth. So the fact of the matter is, if I'm just gonna say it, the fact of the matter is, a vast majority of the people who are dying every year, they're killing themselves. Okay, and it may not necessarily be because they're doing it on purpose, because we all know that there's lies everywhere about false information about what we should do and what we shouldn't do. But if you took 5 minutes to do your own homework and do your own research, you would find all the truths about the reasons why heart disease actually happens and how easy it is to avoid it. Okay? And you have to think about even simple things like this, right? You're getting ready to go on a trip. You're getting ready to travel, which travel is awesome. If you don't travel, please travel. It's great for your mind. It's great for your stress, everything, right? But if you're getting ready to travel, think about this, right? You might even have to buy an extra seat if obesity is an issue, right? So look at some of the policies of different airlines, right? Where does it say? It says Alaska Airlines requires the purchase of a second seat for any passenger who can't comfortably fit within one seat with the armrest in the down position. So think about that. If you sit down in a seat and the armrest cannot be comfortably put down, you got to buy two seats. What does it say? Allegiant Air, lower their second armrest. American Airlines, all right? If they need a seatbelt extension and their body extends more than 1 inch beyond the outermost edge of the armrest. Okay, Delta Airlines, Frontier. I'm not going to read all these. The point is, all of these airlines have policies to protect the other passengers in case you're sitting in a seat that you're too big to sit in. Okay? And again, we're talking about things that are preventable, curable with diet, guidance. Okay? Last thing before we wrap up here, y'all. I guess we're out of a pandemic. I don't know, right? But anywho, let's consider COVID-19, which, last couple of years, and even still a little bit, today, is a hot topic. Let me find my place again here. Yes, here it is. So you think about the fact that COVID-19 comes around, which was a virus, right? Coronavirus. And the way your immune system is supposed to work is when it encounters some type of pathogen, whether it be fungal or viral or bacterial, whatever it may be, your immune system's alarms are supposed to go off, the bells start ringing, and they send in the metaphorical troops to go ahead and fight that problem, right? So you would think that, hey, when COVID-19 comes around, my immune system should be able to handle this. It should be able to knock this thing out, right? Well, unfortunately, the folks who died the most, right, were people who were diabetic, right? As it says here, about 40% of the people who died from COVID-19 had diabetes. Okay? And then look here. Among deaths of those under 65, because remember when they came out with these studies, right, they kept saying it's elderly. It wasn't because they were elderly, it was because they had a condition. But even if we're talking about because the healthy elderly were like, all right. So among the deaths of those under 65, 50% had a chronic condition. So if you want to argue and say, hey, it's not a big deal, I should be able to be comfortable in my own skin, I shouldn't be worried about my blood pressure, I'll just take these pills, stop shaming, the obese community or anything like that. If that's your attitude, as you can clearly see, if you listen to me for 5 minutes, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that people are dying. And in order to stop people from dying, I'm trying to tell you to change the way you live and eat. It's that simple. It's that simple. Okay? All right. I'm done. Let's see if we got any Q&A. I'll do a quick little recap real quick. Again, we talked about some of the challenges of folks dealing with chronic disease. We talked about it costs a lot of money, healthcare costs to the personal person, to the country, physical limitation, emotional challenges, right? We talked about several different things like brain fog, being fatigued, right? We talked about missing lots of work. We talked about issues with obesity, being too tired and physically unable to do certain things. Lots of complications associated with diabetes, complications with heart disease, and then we talked about the fact that if you're diabetic or if you have other types of chronic disease issues, when you encounter a virus, come here, man. Come here. Yeah. Let's pause that real quick. Yeah. So this is the dude. We were boxing yesterday. Hands up. We were boxing yesterday.
Yeah.
Hands up.
I got you.
Anyway, the point is.
I want to go.
You want to go?
Yeah.
I gotta finish the video. Let me finish. You can sit here for 2 seconds. The point is, if you want to be able to box and play with your kids and your grandkids, take care of yourself, right? We got any Q&A? No Q&A today? No Q&A today? All right, so keep in mind, folks, that we're going to do these streams every Monday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time, and every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time. Talking about a new topic every time we do these streams. No, we got all visitors here. All visitors. Why don't you come on in too? All visitors, right? Every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, and every Monday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. And we always end with the Q&A. We don't end with snorting from kids. But anywho, as always, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on so that you're always up to date with each and every stream that we do here on the channel. Make sure you visit fitnesscharles.com. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at fitnesscharles. And stay tuned for a Fit Forever Family, which is my 12-week transformation program that's designed. Well, we're not gonna sell it just yet. All right, I'll see y'all later. Have a good day. All right, bye. Say bye, y'all. Bye. Finish. And did I stop? I didn't stop yet. Let's stop streaming.